Right. Gotcha.
Start that pump. Oh. Oh, okay, what is that? No.
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 Okay. Right. We are not... Right. Hang on a minute. Hang on. I'm doing it. This isn't good for us, but we have to do it.
Oh, they're coming out down here. How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to Is It Worth It, the show where we take a game of £20 or less, play it for a few hours, and then we give you our verdict on whether we think it's worth the buy. And as always, I say as always, it's been a very long time since we've done this, so welcoming back the one and only Master of Nothing. Say hello, Masters.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it. I've been hiding in the depths of my basement, which I don't have, just pitter-pattering away, thinking of games to play, and then you threw this one out, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. It's a good little game.
It is a good little game. So, today we're going to be looking at 10 miles to safety. Masters, would you like to tell the lovely folks what it is?
What is it? So this game is kind of it's a zombie apocalypse game. The zombie apocalypse has just happened. The world is all starting to crumble and there are zombies. And basically you have to make your way literally 10 miles to safety. And it's in a procedurally generated world, which is totally overrun by infected. And you have to go and find tools and weapons, and then you have to survive every single day. It cycles through day by day, and just try as the world gets harder and harder, you have to get further and further, building up the miles to finally get to the end. It's a great game, actually. I'm really happy. Like I said, really happy to talk about this game because I don't think I've played anything quite like this. There's a lot of games out there that are quite similar, but this one kind of has its own feel to it, and it's early access, so where it is now is great, but in the future, this game could really be something, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely a game that when I was looking at before we played it, looking at like the store page and everything, I was just sort of looking at it thinking, it's probably going to be just sort of a top-down Left 4 Dead kind of game. But when we actually got to playing it, I really felt it had its own personal aesthetic, and a lot of love and thought got put into making this game. Because as you just said, that it is in early access, and there has been a lot of games that I'm pretty sure both of us have played that have been full releases that we have thought has naffle to it, whereas this really feels like they put a lot of effort into it. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it's not some sort of... I mean, a lot of people can say that there are so many zombie games out there, so many like survival, day-by-day survival games. You have to collect loot, basically. You know, they're all the same. But this one actually feels kind of very different. It's not just a gun and run. There is a lot of that. That is kind of what the base of the game is formed around, but there is a lot of kind of tactical thinking. There is almost a bit of a base building element within it, which you have to erect when all of a sudden there is a swarm coming at night, or you have to do a scenario, which is kind of like these randomly generated story modes. So there's a lot there, and there's a lot of risk and rewards. You could, if you wanted to, just completely run all the way through this game and do it within a few minutes. However, there's a lot of reward in exploring this generated world, and just trying to like get the right kind of gear and the right kind of setup, and like have the right kind of like team working with you throughout of it. I'm enjoying it.
So mechanically, on the surface, it looks very basic. It's a top-down run and gun aesthetic. So mechanically, you just look at it and think, really simple. But then when you actually start playing it, I found there was a hell of a lot to it. As you said, like, you could just run, but as you run, the day goes on. And when it hits nighttime, you get a warning going, it's about to be nighttime. So you kind of go build a base, use sort of just bits of wood that you get from destroying bits around. build barricades, build wire fencing, and then suddenly all these, like, I think they were called hunters, but these specific kind of zombies came out, didn't they? Only at night, and you had to hunker down and fend off for all the evening. So I thought that was really cool. And then, as you said, as you're going through, you need to sort of start looking at buildings, get better weapons, get better armor, sort of look for ammo so you don't run out. And it really became, I thought, a really in-depth look at actually what you'd have to do in a zombie apocalypse. And that it's not as easy as just grab a weapon and go. It is sort of really need to think about what you're doing as you're going and plan what you're doing so you don't get caught out.
It's interesting that really, because as you start to go through the world and you start to get closer to safety, essentially, the miles will start to slowly go down from 10. I think we got to mile 5 by the end of, but we literally just got to that point. And from the very beginning, the scale of difficulty was really kind of straightforward. You might have got yourself a weapon, a basic melee weapon. You usually have a melee weapon and two like assault weapons, like a pistol or a machine gun or a shotgun, and you'll have to collect ammunition and get the right kind of gear and the right kind of armor to proceed, because by the time you get to the next area, which will be again randomly generated, you don't know what's going to be there, so you need to make sure you've got all the best gear you can possibly get. I mean, we ran through, I think the game starts with you in like a suburbs, and we ended up in a town, in a city, but between all of that we ended up in the forest. I think we ended up in a set of docks. Ended up in, I'm trying to think where that middle area was. There was a load of barges that we had to move across.
Yeah,
and we
it was almost like a maze, wasn't it?
Yeah, and these were very different in what you could collect. So maybe in the suburbs, you might be able to find a lot of stuff that you can create and build stuff with. However, when you start to get into the city, you might have a lot of items to craft things, but you might not have enough wood and steel to build defenses in the night. Or you might get some really good weapons there. However, you might have very little ammo to use them, because it might be a really fast running weapon, or you might not be able to find the right kind of upgrades, or it might be the case that you just don't have the right kind of ammo, the armor to basically take a hit. So you might just go down in one hit. So you have to find that balance of wandering around, keep moving, and getting the right kind of gear to survive the night. And now that's what I really liked about this game, mostly, is that it was never the same. It was always very different, and I genuinely didn't know what was going to turn up. There were some little bugs though that I wasn't too keen on, but again, it's early access. I have to give it some credit for that.
Yeah, I really did enjoy the fact that the amount of stuff you have to think about did keep it feeling fresh all the time. Like, there were points when we were like, right, we need to check every single building in this one area because we've got no ammo, we need better weapons. And especially when we got to, as you said, we got to the docks, and we suddenly found that there were no weapons around, and it was all just building material. And we were going
no
through
weapons,
yeah,
no ammunition, no armor, and every time you end up in a certain area, it will tell you if the items that you have are sufficient for that area, because it's getting harder. And then we end up walking into this area where there's nothing to collect except for things that you can create for barricades, or maybe razor wire, or maybe the odd like bandage, but there was no weapons. You were totally stuck with just having to think totally different. You were used to be running and gunning, maybe surviving, might have the odd Molotov to throw, might be able to barricade somewhere in a nice area. The docks were just open, just the odd warehouse, so it totally changed the game.
It was like the hardest point I think we had to play, because we really had to just change up how we thought about everything. We had to find as much sort of razor wire equipment and just build stuff that would hurt enemies at night before they got to us, so that the minimum damage we could do, which was pathetic on our weapons at that point, was just enough to take them out. One thing I liked about it was actually, I quite enjoyed the graphics. They're very simple, but they're very charming, I thought. I thought it had a really charming look to it. Like, all the zombies looked different. They didn't make all the zombies look the same, which I loved. And what I also loved, and I've always loved this in games, it's such a minor thing, but when you picked up new armor or helmets, it changed on your person. And it's such a tiny thing, but it's just that kind of attention to detail that I just love to see when people make games.
And actually, that is a point really, because these characters aren't just base characters that you put some armor on. They will have certain attributes and abilities. When you first start the level, start the game, you'll have a choice of naming your character, then choosing what that character is and what their like attributes are. So with that, you might have a bruiser. I think you had a bruiser, didn't you, Drum?
Yeah.
I had an engineer, which I think the bruiser was able to
more melee
basically
damage and more health, I think it was, for the bruiser.
so you were able to kind of deal with like situations where you have to get up close and personal, whereas I was an engineer, which means I could create better structures that lasted longer. All my items were better, but there were other characters there as well. There was the looter, which means when you looted things, if you looted strong like boxes, which will mean that you have to break them down, it wouldn't spawn zombies. And there was a sharpshooter, which meant that their sniper rifles were did more damage, and they generally had better accuracy or something like that. And there was, I think, maybe a last one there, which I'm trying to think
crafter.
of. Yeah, something like that, which could make. Oh, it was almost. I think it was like maybe a medic or something like that that could craft. Like specific items that could actually help your team, because of course, having that kind of different characters means that you can come play a little bit differently. So, I could build a barricade while you held back the zombies, or while I was repairing something, you could, take a few more hits for me, or you could go into a situation where you had me behind you and you can almost like kind of carve a way through. Those kind of things that we just basically kind of adapted to, knowing that what our characters could do. So I would basically grab as much gear to craft as possible, whereas you would basically have as much health as possible, as healing stuff as possible, and maybe a better kind of like more close range weapon, whereas maybe I would pick a longer range weapon. And these kind of styles kind of came really useful as we started to play further into the game. At the beginning, not so much. It's kind of getting used to it. It doesn't really give you a tutorial of such.
No, it was very short, wasn't it? The tutorial.
Yeah, it kind of just throws you straight into it. Really, real basic like overview of what's kind of going on. And then basically you've got a gun, you've got a weapon, now go and run. And you're like, which direction do I even go? So on that way, you just start to learn what your character's kind of good at.
Definitely a lot to it, and I think if you had a real team of like 4 people, the stuff you could do, I think, would be absolutely nuts. You would definitely have all sort of your own jobs and things. One thing that they did do, which we didn't mention yet, is when you got to the end of an area, and I really like this, there was just like almost a small story element to it, in which that you had to defend a place, at which point they would allow you to go to the next area. And it was just little things like, fuel the boat up and defend the boat while it gets fueled up, and then go find some stuff to fix the boat, and then off you go. And I really liked that, because it really did feel like you were progressing rather than just the places changed. It really felt like you actually made some progression when you hit those bits. And I thought that was like a really nice thing. They could have just left it and just let you walk the whole 10 miles and leave you to it. But I felt those breaks really made you feel like you had made a dent into it.
Yeah.
So one thing that I picked up on a lot, and this could be, I'll give them a bit of slack here, because it, as you say, it is still in early access. But one thing that kept happening that kind of bugged me a bit was when you had places with more than one floor, I could see stuff on other floors, and it was kind of off-putting and confused me a bit sometimes. So when there's something you can loot, it will have like a little coloured dot on it. So if I was on one floor, I could see coloured dots on the floors above and below. And so it kind of threw me off. And then I remember one point specifically, I was building stuff downstairs, and you were on the top floor building some barricades, and I could see your barricades being put up.
Yeah,
and
I noticed those as well.
It kind of just threw me off a bit. As I said, it could be an early access thing, but that was one thing that I did think they really need to look into that, because it got a bit confusing at times, thinking, oh, there's something there. Oh, no, I've just wasted time coming over here because I'm on the wrong bloody floor. And that bit of extra polish on that would have been really nice at this point.
Yeah, I would say enemies as well. If you came across certain enemies, they would kind of appear on different floors, so you didn't quite know where they were. There's a lot of kind of horde nights. Every night there is a horde. You have to barricade and basically survive the night because you can't leave the area because it's basically pitch black. It's not safe to go out in the dark basically, and these different types of zombies appear. And because of that, what will start to happen is that you sometimes, if we're separated, you might not even be able to get together. And then with that, on top of not being able to see basically any of where the actual like the enemies are because they might be on multiple floors, it will basically totally screw you up, and you might have total carnage. Basically, it's kind of upsetting that you could get so far into a night all set up, and turns out that we were both on different floors. Maybe a miscommunication here, I don't know. But because of that, we've now basically set up on two different sides of on a building. We don't know where the enemies are, and because we're on the third floor or you're on the fourth floor, we can't actually get together because we're kind of limited about the area of space that we can move around when the night basically comes. So it was kind of frustrating in that respect. There was another bug that I kind of came across quite a lot in this game, and it was when I was trying to pick up items, or basically the general UI was a little bit of a problem for me. So I didn't know what weapons were good, what weapons were bad. It told you that they had better damage, but it just really wasn't that easily visible. And when it tells you didn't have the right kind of armor, there was one point where I was looking for a helmet for ages. You had been coming across this helmet an awful lot, but at no point did I know if that helmet that I had was good enough because it was just not easily visible, and we were running around so much with so many zombies after us, you couldn't stop to just compare. And that was kind of frustrating for me. There was also kind of another thing that I did kind of pick up. It was picking up items in general. You had to highlight it with your mouse and then press E to pick up. Not just the fact is you're next to it wasn't good enough. You had to highlight it to say I wanted to pick up this ammunition. Now, when you're running around and you're trying to survive and you're trying to get through zombies or put up barricades and things like that, that was really not easy to do. I really struggled with that. There was multiple times where I just frustratingly went past items to ammo because there was so many people around, which means I basically ended up without the kind of gear that I would have needed, and that really hampered us in the future in levels where we needed all the gear we could possibly get.
The one that kept getting me was, and I mean, some people might like this, but for me, it was a real pain, is you have to manually reload the guns.
Like, I like that.
Once you yeah, and I think it's a personal preference, I think, but like for me, it was, I kept running out of ammo in the clip, and I just kept forgetting that I had to manually reload, and maybe we're just spoilt nowadays with auto reloads in guns, but it was just one of those things that I just kept happening. I just kept sitting there going, oh god, I keep forgetting to reload, and it really bugged me that I couldn't just automatically reload the gun when the clip emptied. Right, yeah. So on that note, Masters, is it worth it? £9.95 on Steam, early access. What do you think?
Yeah, it's worth it. I think for £10, get some friends around, all around a screen, or get your laptops out and just play this, for a day. I think you could probably get a good few hours out of it. I think there's also a replayable kind of factor to it. I do want to go back and finish my last 5 miles. I want to know what happens at the end, and I want to see how tough it really gets. I do think it's worth it. I think you should give it a go.
Yeah, I'd completely agree on that. I think for £9.95, I think you definitely should play this. I think you should play it with friends because that'll be the time you have the most fun. But I actually think it's a game that you would really enjoy playing on your own as well. If you enjoy sort of the run and gun games, if you enjoy zombie games, if you enjoy sort of shooter, looter, kind of manage your resources kind of games, I really think actually you'd enjoy this as single player as well. And so I think that's definitely worth going for if you're a lonely guy and you don't have friends to play with.
I mean, even if you didn't have friends, I think it's still worth playing.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Now, if you want to actually see some of the gameplay footage of this, Masters should be uploading it on his channel, in which you just get to effectively a let's play of us playing the game together.
Badly.
How we our first initial reactions on it and how we played. So definitely go over to his channel, Master of Nothing, and check it out. It's definitely worth it. There will be a link down in the description below. So thank you very much, Masters, for joining me.
No problem. And until next time.
Definitely.
Take care.
If you've got a game of £20 or less that you'd like us to check out and tell you whether we think it's worth it or not, let us know down in the comments. You can tweet me at DrumForestDrum. You can tweet Masters at...
I think it's Masters of Nothing. Masters with an S, because I forgot to do it right. Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's me.
Excellent. So go see him there. It's good that he knows his Twitter handle, and so you can tweet us there. You can tell us down in the comments, and we'll have a little look at it. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to keep up to date on all the latest content here. And we'll catch you all next time. Take it easy, everybody.